Tron, the franchise that keeps trying to be a thing but has yet to really become a thing. The series is about a virtual world called the Grid, where computer programs are people and people are akin to gods. Jeff Bridges plays Kevin Flynn, a programmer who gets zapped into the Grid where he teams with a protector program named Tron to brave the dangers of cyberspace. Tron not only pushed the boundaries of digital effects at the time, it also tapped into the mystique around computers and technology. Programming functions were visualized in real-life metaphors, and cyberspace was a land of potential where your creations came to life and you could do anything with basic coding ability. Plus, who hasn't wanted to jump into a video game world now and then? This all helped make Tron not only a technical landmark, but a beloved cult film for years to come. And then Tron Legacy happened. Tron Legacy came inches from getting a full review in the early days of my channel. It's almost an entire movie of exposition. Legacy is just 2 hours of people explaining what's happened since the first movie in the most ham-fisted franchise baiting I've ever seen. And I've seen Tom Cruise's Mummy. That's not even getting into my issues with the creative direction they tried to take the series, but we'll get into that later. Tron Legacy came at a time when Disney was scrambling for a new franchise to replace Pirates of the Caribbean. So Legacy not only had a tie-in prequel cartoon series, Tron Uprising, it also had not one but two tie-in prequel video games, Tron Evolution and Tron Evolution Battlegrids. But despite all that groundwork, Tron faded off as a franchise yet again, with the imminent release of Tron Ares coming 15 years later. So let's take a look at these semi-forgotten Tron games, and the order you play them does matter, so we'll start with Tron Evolution Battlegrids on the Nintendo Wii. Battlegrids' plot is pretty simple. The Grid has a tournament called the Grid Games where programs compete in sporting events, which is weird since the games were the villain's method of torture and execution in both movies. The champion of the games for ages has been Tron, but he's retiring, leaving the tournament wide open. And you play as an ISO competing in the games who's handpicked by Tron to become the next champion. And if you don't know what an ISO is, good! It means you didn't see Tron Legacy. I've been holding this in for over a decade, so when it comes time to razz on the movie, I want to get it all out at once. For now, let's just say the ISOs are a minority, and Tron wants them to have an idol to look up to. So you make your own custom avatar, and you're launched into a light cycle arena battle with Cora, Olivia Wilde's character. And this being a game on the Wii, of course it uses motion controls. And factor in the speed of sound and the distance from Canada to the Midwest United States, and any second now... I hate motion controls! Yeah, you hold the Wii remote sideways, tilt it left and right to steer, and lurch it upwards to jump. It's really smooth and responsive, even without the Wii Motion Plus, which the game is compatible with. I've never tried the Wii Motion Plus because holding the remote sideways with an extra 2 inches of bulk in the way is no good. The Light Cycle Arena is the iconic game that everyone associates with Tron, and it's done brilliantly here. As you drive, you leave a light trail behind you, and the object of the game is to take out the other players by making them hit your trail. It's a unique combat mechanic, and it turns the game into a constant assessment of risk and reward, since it takes careful maneuvering and throwing yourself into line of fire to take out an opponent. Cora's rigged to be the lowest difficulty computer player, but she might be one of the trickiest since her AI makes her run as far away from you as possible, so you have to chase her down. Also, in a reference to how most iterations of this game only have 90-degree turns, you can use the control pad to make right-angle turns on command for added maneuverability. And also, disorientation. The third-person camera angle and high speed do a great job of framing the action to feel thrilling. The mechanics definitely take some getting used to, but once you're there, Light Cycle Arena is pretty much the game you'll keep coming back to, especially with some of the rules that you can change, but we'll get to that later. In between story missions, you're dumped into small hub areas where you can either continue the story or run around doing side missions, take on non-mandatory games in exchange for bits that can buy accessories and new equipment. I always do all of the side content because it's pretty much the only actual structure the game has, and even doing every last side activity, the campaign's a hair under 4 hours long. It's not like you've got anything better to do. Hub areas also drop bits around the environment for you to pick up manually. really glad there's no game based on the platforming because the jumping feels like it barely works. The second grid game present is Light Cycle Race, where players drive through a race course trying to get to the finish line first. There are no items, but you still have your light trail to take down opponents, boost pads and stall pads to drive around, and you can shunt to either side to ram the enemies. It's okay, but while the high speed of movement makes the arena game super fun, here it feels like you can barely react to or avoid any of the obstacles. And there isn't much of a catch-up mechanic for when you screw up. In fact, since the light cycles all leave killing trails behind them that can easily box you into corners, this is like built on anti-catch-up mechanics. Oh, and the brake button isn't like a normal brake that lets you slow down to take harsh corners. It just friggin' slams you to a halt, which is nigh useless. Had these developers ever played an actual racing game before? The courses are busy, but visually stellar. I love all the neon colors and briefly getting a larger look at the grid. But guess how many race courses there are? Whatever you guess, I promise it's lower. The Light Cycle Race has 4 racetracks, which is kinda symptomatic of how little depth they decided to put into each of the games. Between 7 events, 4 hours of campaign, and track selection that makes Transformers Galactic Trials look good, I guess Disney money goes a lot further now than it used to. The next event is Tanks. It's played on an overhead view where the nunchuck's control stick moves your tank while the Weir mode pointer aims weapons. You can charge shots to fire ricochet bullets, missiles, or mortars, plus you have a shield and you can crap landmines. You have a lot of combat options, complex but smooth controls, and decent strategy. Having to track where you're moving versus where you're shooting is tricky but manageable. There's a great variety to the maps and hazards, and it makes for a pretty stimulating and fun game. Except for when your tank gets stuck because you tried to take too sharp a turn with giant treads. Get your ass moving! Come on! Unfortunately, the game has a cheap oversight where you could just drive yourself off the side of the map to deny your opponent a point and respawn with full health. In most games, deliberately killing yourself would deduct from your score, but here there's no penalty. Why do the levels have no walls in the first place? I don't know, nerf the ricochet weapon and cheese the computer at the same time. Then there's Hyperball, which is basically convoluted tennis. You throw a ball back and forth by throwing it into the ceiling, press A to catch, and shake the remote to throw. Timing's important since the ball can build momentum, but unlike other tennis games I've played, you can aim where the ball lands to screw with your opponent, which is a nice touch. But that's really all there is to it. Hyperball feels so shallow and generic that it seems like filler next to the other games. Michael Sheen's character shows up super impressed that you beat Korra, an amateur, in a single event, and he decides to present you to Tron as the next champion. I don't know, he must have noticed me wildly flailing around the room for bits and deduced that I'm the main character. And Tron trains you in the most mediocre of games, the disc battle. Players run around the arena trying to kill each other. B attacks, C jumps, Z blocks, and at close range your attack becomes a melee strike. It's always confusing trying to figure out whose attack takes precedence when 2 players duke it out, and you're hosed if multiple players decide to team up on you. But that's not the issue. At regular intervals, the game will drop items like a hyperdisc, a recognized laser, or a pixelization poison thing. Not only do these items power up your attacks, but if you shake the remote, the item unleashes a super move that tends to kill in 1 hit. The items are so insanely overpowered that the strategy is just to dash for items the second that they spawn. During my first fight getting footage for this video, my opponent kept having items spawn underneath him, so luck plays a massive factor. It just lacks the impact and intensity that you'd expect from programs duking it out with energy discs, on top of how clunky it is to play. And the story doesn't continue unless you play 4 of these damn matches in a row. Light cycles be damned, I guess Tron figures that if you can beat the shit out of your opponent in a street brawl, you're all set. So here's a fun fact. Longtime viewers know that my favorite color is blue. So when I originally started the game, I made my avatar light blue. And when you get to this part of the campaign, Tron has you fight 2 or 3 other programs at once, and they're all light blue. I couldn't tell who the fuck I was. We're all the same color and wearing the same helmets. So I switched my character to Evil Mastermind Yellow, and I've never looked back. Tron has a right-hand man Calcus that puts you through your paces, and after a few rounds, Korra just abruptly wants to run away with you. Thanks, but I already have a virtual waifu. Tron, do you know what she's talking about?
I've seen grid bugs before. Destructive and dangerous creatures.
Thanks! Nobody was talking about grid bugs, but thanks! They take you to a place called the Boot for more training, where you run into Kalev, who's pissed that you're the chosen one, and extra pissed that he's got no shot with Korra.
Oh. Hey, Korra.
Yeah, hi.
And when Kalev decides to call you out to face a real warrior, his arena of choice is tennis. What? What's funny is that when you free play the events, you battle against other named characters from the story, and they chime in with taunts or wails if they score or get scored upon by you. And Kalev is such a raging douchebag that he's one of my favorite punching bags to use in the free play modes.
I don't believe it. I'll get you for that.
You and Korra realize you should probably head back to the actual tournament since you've been gone for Lord knows how many hours. But you fall off the grid, get attacked by grid bugs, and get rescued by Gibson, an ISO who leads a group of survivalists that live outside the grid feeding on stray energy sources. Why these programs choose to live as outcasts is never explained. They just exist. It's also weird that the entire colony knows who you are from your progress in the tournament when you've won all of one tournament match against Korra, who's a novice. Were there story missions that got scrapped where the tournament was more of a thing? Anyway, you have to fight a bunch of survivalists to go back to the grid, and that's where we're introduced to our final two games, Light Runner Race and Light Runner Arena. Both involve driving four-wheeled ATVs armed with miniguns, and both games have the same problem. The controls are garbage. Vast swaths of the maps for these events are rocky terrain where you can't steer worth shit. You lurch and bounce and careen off course non-freaking stop, just trying to drive a straight line. It's workable in the arena game where you're just shooting the crap out of the other players. I just camp on the smooth terrain where you have a light trail and let people crash into me. But the Light Runner racing courses? You'll be fighting the game to make any single individual turn without veering off into a wall and getting stuck. Shit! Oh, finally, I'm done with this damn race. I can finally move on to... No! I was inches away from the finish line and it just exploded out of nowhere! Light Runner Race is the worst event by a mile, and it's not even the Wii's fault. Who the hell makes an almost entirely off-road driving game? It's a complete catastrophe of ass! It kinda stinks that they rigidly stuck to the movies for the grid games. Tanks, Hyperball, Disc Arena, and Light Cycle Arena are all from the first film, and the Light Runner is from an incidental sequence of the sequel. All they were willing to stretch past the movies was with two racing events, i.e. basic driving stages. It would have been cool if they got creative and stretched out a little, made the universe feel bigger than just the films. Plus, Legacy ends with a big dog-fighting glider battle, so they could have added some flying events while still keeping to the movies. Shit, I'll take flying through rings over another Light Runner race! In spite of the limited number of events, they did squeeze in some more variety with the different game modes for each event. Light Runner Arena has racing and brawling to waypoints, Tanks has a King of the Hill mode, Disc Arena has players scramble to mark spaces on the board, and Hyperball you can destroy your opponent's platforms. There are also team battle events, which is nice for a multiplayer option with less experienced friends, and you can set up your own free play tournament where you play several events where points carry over, adding some more structure to the gameplay. But hands down, the best parts of the game are the alternate modes for the Light Cycle Arena. There's a survival mode where light trails never disappear and players compete in rounds where the last man standing gets a point. It's a thrilling and intense game and a glorious modernization of the game that Tron is known for. But it gets even better. Each game also has a few customization options, and you can set up a Light Cycle Arena match for infinite trails. Now every player's trail only disappears when they die, so you're all duking it out to build massive intricate webs of light trails to rack up points by killing the other players over and over again. The tension constantly builds and releases as the arena gets tighter and tighter to maneuver. You have the satisfaction of building a trail so long it racks up kills, and the determination to build back up when you finally die and have to start from the bottom. This is a mode that I could easily play for hours, even with the limited arenas and players. I could easily see someone writing off this game. 1 event sucks, 3 are okay, 2 are decent, and 1's amazing. But the Light Cycle Arena stands out to me as the one thing the game gets so outstandingly right that it makes the game worth it. Plus, as short as it is, I really like the story campaign and how it provides a look at casual life in the grid. Something the movies don't really do. Well, you beat the bad guy's right-hand man Bosch in a tank battle, and then Blaze, the main villain who's only appeared once and not done anything yet, kills Calcus by sabotaging his bike and then running him over. Of course, the main cast's only black guy is the one who dies. Of course he is. Then Blaze and Bosch kidnap Cora, because why else would a hot girl be hanging around you all game other than to be the damsel in distress? But Gibson shows you where they went so you can rescue her by using the crappy disc arena combat to fight a bunch of elite guards. Thank crap for items, and thank crap for checkpoints. You save Cora, you take down Blaze in a Light Cycle Arena duel, which I always like to break out the OG Light Cycle for the occasion, and Flynn shows up to crown your custom character as the very first ISO Grid Games champion. You are now a hero of the downtrodden and an inspiration to programs everywhere. And that custom character that you created, that you've been using to play, that you put a little piece of your soul into, your gateway into the world of Tron, becomes a mass murderer and causes the extinction of their entire race. What? Alright, now it's time for Tron Evolution, and I'm playing it on the Xbox 360. The game opens with Flynn explaining that it's been 7 years since the first film and 5 years since ISOs came to the grid. Civil unrest is brewing between the basics and the ISOs to the point an ISO leader named Jalen has died under mysterious circumstances. Things get worse when a mysterious virus called Abraxas, gee, I wonder who he could possibly be, begins wreaking havoc on the grid, corrupting programs into mindless melee enemies. You play as a system monitor named Anan, whom Flynn sends into the grid to maintain order and help sort things out. The very first thing that happens is you spawn into a city square with tons of open space and a lot of programs walking through or hanging around. Your first instinct is to explore, and you smash into boatloads of invisible walls and exactly 0 of the programs will talk to you. So the game's first impression is that this will be a painfully linear adventure where it's utterly pointless to do anything but head to the next objective. Aye aye, Captain. Tron Evolution is more of a straightforward action game with a heavy emphasis on platforming to cross stages and fill time between combat. The right trigger is basically an all-purpose parkour button to run along walls, vault over terrain, and leap between walls to reach faraway ledges. It's not half as bad as Gollum, you control much faster and these bits aren't nearly as long as with the talking tumor turd. But the platforming still just kind of feels like padding. They have their own version of yellow paint to mark exactly where to go at all times, so it's not like it's a puzzle to figure out what to do. It's like it requires just barely enough thought and effort to not be bored. Running along walls also takes some getting used to. You can't run very far, which has led to me falling because I clipped a wall too early, and running up the wall versus running across one are two very similar inputs, leading to occasions where I vaulted up into the ceiling because I didn't hurdle myself against the wall just right. And then the weirdest mechanic, they give you a magnetic disc that works like a grappling hook. It launches you toward fixed nodes. It's kind of annoying to use, really only works like a quick-time fixed jump, and has an annoyingly short range. Get up there, get up there! Crap. One definite positive though is that, at least on the Xbox 360, the game loads a checkpoint and respawns you almost immediately, so the platforming doesn't get too frustrating. This is also the kind of game to drop a checkpoint about every 30 seconds or so. Make of that what you will. Flynn's system administrator Clue claims that Abraxas is an ISO and Flynn doesn't buy it, so about half an hour into the game, the other shoe drops. And this is where I have to stop and talk about the movie, because Tron Legacy's hook to set up tie-ins and prequels was... what's the nice way to say short in the heart? The ISOs are self-aware computer programs that just materialized out of thin air. Nobody knows how or why they exist, but Flynn believes their mere presence will revolutionize science, medicine, and religion. He never elaborates how because the ISOs as a concept are pure bullshit. Clue decided that he's meant to create the perfect system, and he can't do that with all these filthy, impure ISOs running around, so he took over the grid and slaughtered all of them. In the movie, Korra is the only one left. The original Tron was an allegory for man's relationship with technology. Tron Legacy was an allegory for Nazi Germany. And half an hour into Evolution, you hit the point where Clue takes over. The rest of the game has you trying to stop his rise to power and save the ISOs. Who sees the problem with this story? Don't worry, I'll wait. Don't be shy. Everyone who saw the movie first walks into the game knowing that you fail at everything. Clue wins. The ISOs die. Saving Olivia Wilde is the sum total of what you can expect to accomplish while untold scores of innocents are massacred in the background. I am just shocked that this Tron revival didn't take off. I mean, who doesn't want an entire series about a successful genocide? Seriously, Tron Legacy and its tie-ins effectively tried to pivot the series into revolving entirely around the mass murder of the ISOs. Uprising was about a rebellion against Clue that amounts to dick by the time of the movie. Evolution is, hey kids, who wants to be on the losing side of Crystal Nacht? And Battle Grids, while it's incredibly toned down, was about showing how the grid was racist even before Clue's coup. Recall that Blaze did not get punished for murdering an innocent ISO on live TV and kidnapping a second in broad daylight. And this is why Tron Legacy and its tie-ins have been stuck in my head for 15 years. Why? Why did Disney bring back a cult favorite series that's about technology, introduce a magic fairy dust concept with nothing to do with technology, and use that as an engine for a half-assed story about genocide? And then use that to set up multiple tie-ins that just wallowed in how edgy their new premise was. They had no idea what to do with Tron as a franchise. And judging from the trailers for Tron Ares, I don't think they figured it out still. Right, sorry, we're here to talk about Tron Evolution. The game's combat is complicated. At first you have 3-hit combos of ranged light attacks and melee heavy attacks. It makes for decent button mashing, but you also have an arsenal of super attacks by pushing Y to kill things quickly, but there are multiple kinds of super attacks that do wildly different things if you're moving, blocking, midair, whatever. Super attacks run on energy, but you can replenish your health and energy by parkouring over energy conduits in the levels. It's kind of a creative and unique mechanic, but it also slows down the combat because a key mechanic is having to constantly run away to grab pickups. The problem comes when you start fighting Clue's soldiers, who all use ranged attacks and cheap shot you to death from off-screen. You have a block, which barely seems to help. Instead, you're meant to parry ranged attacks. Hold block and press X exactly when you'd get hit. Except I could barely get the parry to work outside the one enemy that's designed to make you use it. Eventually, Clue's soldiers start shrugging off attacks until I just have to start mashing everything until they take some damage. And some are explicitly only vulnerable to those super attacks that take special energy. The douchebags! Another big problem is the game's targeting system. You have no idea how many supers I wasted because I was staring down 3 or 4 enemies dead on and the game locked on to nothing. The entire combat system revolves around locking onto targets and it barely friggin' works. It also took me a while to figure out that you have multiple discs as the game goes on. You swap out the disc you have equipped to slightly alter your attacks, and eventually I found out the disc doesn't even change your attacks, it just makes your super moves do slightly different things, and some enemies are rigged to take even less damage unless you've got the right disc equipped. At least, I think that's how it all works. The game was so rushed, there's no tutorial for the disc system. They play a mute gameplay clip, and that's it! So is the combat confusing enough for you? Well, I eventually figured out how it works, but for now, let me show you how I know that this game was rushed as all get out. At the start of Chapter 2, you're sent into a boss fight with a tank. You're told that it's weak to the bomb disc, and I had not figured out what the bomb disc is yet. So how did I kill the tank? by standing on it. I just straight up stood on top of the tank and it froze there completely motionless. And you might say, well, you froze the boss, but your attacks aren't damaging it, so it's a stalemate. Au contraire, every now and then the game wakes up and actually reads one of my attacks as a hit. The targeting and hit detection on this boss are just pure ass. And I can prove this because late in the game you have to fight 2 tanks at once, and the game barely reads any hits on them either. And the tanks flat out stun lock you to death even if they have to shoot through solid walls, so I'm not exactly broken up about cheating. Shart! Shart! Don't make me sit on you! Huh. So standing on a tank isn't supposed to work. Then at the end of Chapter 2, you fight an elite guard mini-boss who hops around spewing bombs like he's the Green Goblin on crack. I couldn't figure out how to defeat him, but eventually he just got stuck in a wall, jumping nowhere in an infinite loop so I could whittle down his health in peace. I got 2 of the first 3 bosses to bug themselves out, immobilized. Brilliant! You meet up with Cora and she says you need to talk to Zeus, since he'll get the word out that the ISOs are in danger. So you platform and fight your way to his club, and he tells you to go talk to the ISO leader in another city, cause she'll get the word out that the ISOs are in danger. So we came here for nothing. Unless you count getting a look at Uncanny Valley Michael Sheen's horrific face. And then the club blows up. It's a good thing he got it rebuilt for the movie, where it blows up again. And hey, good news! The game has Tron's iconic light cycles. Bad news, they're used for the stock obligatory adventure game vehicle sections and they control like bot. The steering is ungodly stiff and you die instantly touching pretty much anything. And they have the gall to put unlockables in the driving sections where you can barely see them and pretty much have to die on purpose to go back for them. Chapter 2, you're fleeing Tron City as Clue's forces start blowing shit up. I guess we're just meant to believe the grid doesn't have phones or news outlets or communication infrastructure of any kind, because it seems like us telling everyone there's a coup underway should be redundant at this point. There's one section where a building collapses onto you and you're given about 2 seconds to dodge it, but there's nowhere to jump to. You think maybe you have to backtrack or jump down to a ledge that you can't see? I died over a dozen times before I figured it out. Turns out you can survive a building crashing down on you by standing 2 inches to the left! Bite me! The best part of the game is when they let you drive a tank, since the city is getting wrecked anyway, might as well wreck it more. It's a little awkward to steer, but you spend several minutes blasting enemies to shreds, plowing through other tanks, and popping recognizers out of the sky. It's easily the most fun I had all game. As in, any. Ah, screw trying to save the world. I want to go to the game grid. There are special spots throughout the game where you can buy upgrades and access the multiplayer mode, except the multiplayer is not multi, but you can play it with bots, so let's give this a try. Alright, you drop into the middle of an arena and engage in basic combat against the other players. No light cycles, no nothing. It's just more of the same damn combat. Even better, if you play offline, all the AI opponents are stoned out on Quaaludes and barely do anything, making this entire mode little more than a way to farm XP if you're stuck. Yippee! And it only loads a single game before booting you back to the story mode, so you have to keep reloading the game grid over and over again. This sucks! Like, apparently the game does have actual light cycle arenas, team deathmatch, and other gameplay modes online, but if you're playing alone, it looks like you don't get shit. And since about half the upgrades you can purchase pertain exclusively to the multiplayer, it's like the game is rubbing your nose in the fact there's this huge chunk of game that's off limits. Oh well. From what I've seen on YouTube, the light cycle arena was super slow and still controlled like ass, so I've still got battle grids for the complete experience. You make your way to the ISO leader Radia to warn her about Clue's betrayal, and she tells you to go warn the other ISOs about Clue's betrayal. Bitch, that's what we came to you for! So this is the second place we've gone for someone to sound the alarm that Clue's a genocidal madman leading a deadly coup to take over the world, and the second person who's chosen to sit on ass and tell us to do it ourselves. It's like they're desperate to pretend that we're being productive in a game where the bad guy canonically has to win. This was around the time that I purchased an upgrade for the bomb disc that makes it explode at a larger range when you hook supers. So let's try it out. Jesus! Turns out the bomb disc can one-shot kill entire groups of enemies with a single super move. So yeah, all combat from this point forward I opened with a bomb disc to instantly nuke all the enemies, and the few that survive tend to be weak to the stasis disc, which immobilizes targets. I barely had to worry about combat ever again. You just huck supers and everything dies. This combat is a joke. It's a convoluted guessing game up until you break it in half. I still had to quit and look up a walkthrough for this part, though. You come to this big platform and fight a ton of enemies, but I couldn't figure out where to go next. I even fell and died and fought my way back here. Nothing. Turns out the game bugged. An elite guard with a Darth Maul stick is supposed to drop down to advance the game, but the scripting broke and the asshole never showed. Eventually, manually reloading checkpoints got the game to work right. At least Chapter 3 ends with another tank section shooting down recognizers. That's fun. And Chapter 4 opens with another stiff controlling light cycle drive, but this one at least has some decent spectacle. Hold on, listen to that. Why the hell does the light cycle have a stock motorcycle engine noise? The thing doesn't have an engine. It doesn't even physically exist. You go to the game grid to rescue Gibson, voiced by Jensen Ackles, and user bless him, he's trying to inject some levity into this crap.
You're looking for him, aren't you? Don't answer. I see it on your face. Oh, and I'd avoid the big guy. I think I put him in a bad mood.
But you wind up locked into a disc war, which, fair is fair, this arena is laid out exactly how it looks in the movie. Minus the altering gravity, because that'd be hard to program. So while you fight more enemies by using the stasis disc on whatever the bomb disc didn't kill in one hit, Clue is giving a speech about how they need to exterminate the ISOs in case more mutate like Abraxas, and also they're dirty drags on society anyway, so screw them. I will give Evolution's writing credit for one thing. It has a theme of how prejudice escalates to persecution. How it only takes one politician that wants something out of you to fearmonger on baseless mistrust and rise to power off an issue that shouldn't even exist. It has nothing productive to say on the topic since there's zero hint of any resistance movement ever shown or implied in-game. Disney chickened out of the racism elements that would have given the story some weight, and Clue won't be stopped for another 21 years by a hug from a magic godman. But hey, it is still a relevant theme. Although the way this cutscene is written and staged, a few pieces are clicking into place for how Legacy and its tie-ins came to be. I was going to joke that Evolution is like a Star Wars game about dying in Order 66, but now I think that might have been the actual pitch. Gibson saves you and takes you back to his colony to meet with Flynn. Well, that was a nice and interesting location in Battle Grids. Maybe something pleasant will finally... shit. The whole place is overrun with viruses. I was wondering why I hadn't fought any zombies for 2 whole levels. Fighting infected programs isn't hard, it's just annoying. They introduce a new kind of zombie who looks identical to all the other zombies, only this one's immune to everything except for stasis disc super attacks, meaning you have to constantly run away to grab more energy to continue the fight. There are still a few survivors in the levels who bungle around the combat arenas instead of getting their asses to safety. What the hell? The screen went black and the game crashed. So hard that it soft-locked my system. I have never seen this before on the 360. You know, I can razz on the game's AI all day, but it did one thing right. Gibson killed another Elite Guard mini-boss for me. Thanks, man. You can guess what happens. Everyone's dead, you run away from Abraxas, and Gibson gets infected, so you have to kill him while he desperately screams in agony for the sweet release of death. So you're telling me that Battle Grids introduced Gibson and his colony for the sole purpose of evolution having a bigger body count. Cheese and rice. You head back to Arja City from Chapter 3 because, I don't know, we need to see the other ISO leader get killed. What the hell? I died on the light cycle by hitting nothing! If you're not supposed to go down this path, then why is there a path here? Clue and his minions are there to kill the ISO leader, who seems to have done nothing in our absence. The city's massive population's been completely exterminated, and Korra shows back up to tell you that all the other ISO cities have been completely wiped out too! Was a writer going through some shit? This hatred of fictional characters is the kind of thing you only see when an author's lost a kid or something. In a twist that was telegraphed from space, it turns out Clue created Abraxas to give himself a pretense to exterminate ISOs. And Abraxas is actually Jalen, the mysteriously killed ISO leader from the start of the game. In fact, if you track down the Abraxas shards to hear his memories, you find out that Jalen was the first ISO Grid Games champion. Wait, I thought our custom character from Battle Grids was the first ISO Games champion. Yes! The custom character that you created for the world of Tron becomes this! A brainwashed, kill-crazed mutant zombie plague spreader who's responsible for the extermination of their own kind. Even for a story as thoroughly miserable as this one, that's low. To be fair, Abraxas' backstory doesn't 100% line up with Battle Grids, but Evolution doesn't line up with the movie either. Evolution doesn't even line up with itself. Flynn says that Jalen died in a grid game, but his unlockable flashbacks say he died in private when he found Clue's battleship. Am I the only one paying attention here? Clue and his goons escape, and you fight Abraxas, who regularly glitches so that multiple lines speak at once. His disc shots only miss if you're parkouring, and the only way to damage him is to get in close to make him use a ground pound and hit him while he's vulnerable. The fight isn't that hard, but the platforming is. In case I haven't already made it clear, the platforming isn't nearly as tight as it should be. So if you're even slightly off target running into podiums and ramps to recharge critical resources, you fall right off the level and die and start over because this fight's over a bottomless pit for some reason. You take out Abraxas and the city gets leveled, but Flynn saves you. He gives you an upgrade that does, I don't know, it turns your suit white. And he sends you to rescue Korra from Clue's battleship because it wouldn't be a Tron Legacy tie-in unless Korra got captured again. Blah, 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 more platforming, more combat, one jump that took about 1,000,000 tries because it's placed so far away and the game kept having me slide off the wall. You get to Clue and Korra. And Clue doesn't execute Korra and complete his extermination of the ISOs because, I don't know, plot armor. He does the same thing in the movie. You fight multiple rounds of elite guards. The first ones spew stun-locking grenades. I'm not even sure how you're supposed to kill them since they shrug off pretty much all of your attacks, but I lucked out and pushed them off the level. Stop making me fight over bottomless pits, and crap like this wouldn't happen! These fights aren't even that hard since you have unlimited health and energy pickups. They're just annoying, which is about the best the dev team can shoot for when you give the player unlimited health and energy pickups. Abraxas comes back and you kill him by shooting reactors. Problem 1, the game's crappy targeting system won't let you shoot the reactors. And problem 2, the floor explodes at pure random. Come on, how are you supposed to dodge that? Abraxas dies for real, I think. They don't show it. Clue's battleship is destroyed, big fat hairy deal since he's got a new one in the movie, and you die saving Korra from the debris so that she and Flynn can wait 21 years for Tron Legacy to happen. The end. I need to brighten my day by watching something happier. I'm thinking maybe Saw? Ah! I really dislike Tron Evolution. On a gameplay level, the combat is clunky and broken. Either you spam cheap special moves or you get your ass handed to you. The platforming is meh and the light cycle driving is tedious. About the only parts I really liked were the tank segments. But this game's true Achilles heel for me is the storyline. Just to recap everything that happened, we failed to stop Clue's rise to power, watched a whole lot of innocent people die, and we stopped all of one Enforcer villain long after it was too late to do anything. If the story focused on Abraxas as the main villain while Clue was gathering power in the background and it ended with the Purge, maybe you survive and start a rebel faction, then you'd get an actual adventure with a tragic ending and the story wouldn't feel pointless. Instead, the entire game is just you failing until there's nobody left for you to fail. It's depressing, and not in an artsy way. It's depressing in the look how edgelord I am kind of way. People die for 4 hours, and that's it. And yeah, if you get the hang of the combat and avoid dying on the platforming, the game is under 4 hours long, like its Wii companion. I guess whether Tron Evolution or Battle Grids is the better game comes down to what you're looking for in a Tron game. Evolution has you running around fighting programs like a hero of the world, while Battle Grids focuses on the games that the series is known for. But Battle Grids has an adventurous tone more in line with the original film, while Evolution cuts you on all its edge. Me personally, Battle Grids is better by leaps and bounds. Both are mixed bags, but Battle Grids' light cycle arena alone is more unique, engaging, and outright fun than anything its high-def counterpart drags you through. Tron Evolution and Legacy just continue to baffle me as to how Disney missed the point of this franchise so hard. But hey, maybe they got their stuff together for Tron Ares. Well, what's another 15 years between sequels?